Yes, the repeating crossbow. It's nice, elegant, and it shouldn't be confused with its more crude Dark Souls 3 version. For this video, I was thinking of raining hell on my enemies. And what's the best way of doing that? Well, by using a minigun of course, but considering the setting of this game, that's not happening anytime soon. But for now, it's time to use the next best thing. I mean, it ain't a minigun, but it's close enough, right? It shoots a sizable volley of bolts, so I'd say so. So this is what this challenge run is going to be about. Raining hell while using a repeating crossbow. Also, I'm going to be doing this as the heavy weapons guy. I tried to make my character as close as I could to him. I hope I did fine because I'm not that good with the character editor. So I'm sorry if it didn't come out great. But it's a thought that counts, and there's still some armor that I need to get for later on in the game in order to complete the look. Now it's time to set the most basic and important rule. Minigun, or in this case, the repeating crossbow. The repeating fire skill is a must. That's how I'm going to be dealing damage. And all the bolts are fair game, because how else am I going to be able to use the crossbow? And now that that's over with, this is Warnock Gamer 4. Make sure to sit back, relax, and or listen while I beat Elden Ring being the heavy weapons guy and using the repeating crossbow. First thing to do is to spawn it in because that thing is a ways away if I try to get it the normal route.
I have no weapon!
I'm not going to be spawning any bolts for myself because I can get that the normal way. Heavy is feeling pretty sad right now with no ammo. It's a sad time to be heavy.
I'm run!
Alright, back at it again, challenging Elden Ring. And that means, as always, Valerie here is calling us maidenless. You are very lucky I have no ammo to deal with you.
Get throw on ammo!
After obtaining our maiden, we get the horse, then get a little bit of ammo from the runes I scavenged. Using the single shot of the crossbow, I was using it to bait the knight's cavalry to its death. But unfortunately for me, it seems like he was smart enough to realize what was happening. So it's time to do it the old-fashioned way by getting him stuck under the branch right to the side of the bridge, and pretty much just waited out for him to fall. And that gives me a good boon of runes, which I use to level up my health and mind up, because those are two stats that are going to be very important in this run. With this new health, it's time to start collecting some talismans to help my damage, because the repeating fire Ash of War reduces the damage of each bolt by about 65%. Or more specifically, about 67.65%, at least according to the wiki. It also reduces stance damage and status buildup by 50% as well. I don't really care about the last two because it still does very good status effect buildup. Now, is it efficient? Not at all. The pulley crossbow is a lot better. But again, this is as close to a minigun as we're getting in the game. With the Arrow's Reach talisman obtained, it's time to farm a few runes in order to start buying the different type of recipes that we need in order to make the different bolts in the game, such as the fire and the rot.
I have no way to kill cowards.
Then collect the others that are just normal pickups. This includes the lightning, the magic, the holy, and the recipe for bleed bolts. There's still more to collect, but for now it's time to start upgrading the weapon, so I need some somber smithing stones. Thankfully, Blacksmith EGs sells some of them here. With that, I level up the repeating crossbow to +6, then off into the Carrion Manor, because I want the recipe to create crossbolts. But of course, it's after Loretta. Thankfully, she wasn't that hard to beat, even though I did die. How long the animation takes requires a bit to get used to. Anyways, I got the frostbolts, even though I can't make them right now. Then hunt down the bell-bearing hunter. And as long as I keep a very good distance, he's pretty easy pickings. For some odd reason, he didn't really spam his Wi-Fi sword very much. With his defeat, I get the Bone Peddler's Bell Bearing in order to stock up with tiny beast bones because I need that in order to make bolts. But I gotta be careful to not make the arrows. You see, this right here is what happens when you don't pay attention. You make the wrong ammo type. Like an absolute idiot. Then head into the Volcano Manor in order to fight the Godskin Noble that's here. Again, for me distance is the key to victory. And since the Noble is pretty slow in catching up, I can shoot pretty freely. That's until he gets into the second phase, and that complicates things a bit. But nothing really changed much. I just had to gun him down in opportune times. And when he tries to roll at me, I just get him stuck on a pillar and just shoot his face. Also, by this point, I ran out of FP and it greatly reduces the damage I do with the repeating fire Ash of War. But luckily for me, I had enough ammo to deal with him. Even though it did extend the fight a bit longer than what I would have wanted. But that doesn't matter because the noble is down and I gain access to the next area. All of that just so I can fall down on top of some cages in order to get the Somber Smithing Stone 7. And that means after getting Smithing Stone 8 and 9 very easily, I can upgrade the repeating crossbow at +9. It's insane to have a +9 somber weapon even before a singular main boss. But before I get to them, there's still a few things I need to get, which is the ritual sword talisman after taking down the demi-human queen. Next up to the High Road Cave, where I take the shortcut in order to skip most of the dungeon. And all that just in order to bully a guardian golem here. Pretty easy boss to take down. And my reward for doing that is a blue dancer's charm, and that increases the physical damage I do as long as I'm very lightweight. Time to farm a few ingredients in order to create some bolts. What I have right now is pretty mediocre, but that's all Heavy needs. Because Margit is not gonna have a fun time fighting Heavy. The only thing I need to take him out is a good old fashioned gun down. Well, that was pretty easy, just tanking most of his hits. With Margit defeated and one talisman slot opened, it's time to get through Stormveil Castle the fastest way possible, which is the front gate. Just have to be careful about all the traps and ambushes laid out along the way. Thankfully, getting through this place is pretty straightforward. And now next up on the hit list, it's Godrick.
No!
As you can see here, his health was very easily mowed down. The status effect buildup is working quite nicely. Not as efficiently as I would like it to, but that's very much understandable why it's not like that. But it gets the job done very well. With Godrick defeated, I find out that I can actually zoom in and out with the crosshair. Didn't even know that. All I need to do is use the arrow keys for this. Don't know how to do it on the controller though. With the runes I've obtained, I level up my health. Then I start doing Vari's quest, which requires Heavy to invade an NPC, which he mows down.
I have squashed you like bug.
Next up, it's coding the Lord of Blood favor with some blood. And with all that done for the side quest, I now have access to Mogwin's Palace. Here I get the final Somber Stone upgrade for the repeating crossbow, finally getting it to +10, and meet a merchant here that sells some bird bolts, which provides some very good blood loss buildup.
This is the best thing!
With some of the runes I got from all this, I low up my health and endurance, farm a bit of runes from the Elden Arcs by the cliff, then get a few Aeonian butterflies to create some rot bolts. Not gonna make a lot though, because farming for the actual drop from an enemy is very annoying.
I will treasure this.
And now it's off to the Redbane Castle in order to fight Radahn. With him being very weak to rot, I quickly built the status effect on him. And while that's doing some very good damage over time, I just take out chunks of his health with continued fire. This Yodi minigun is doing pretty good. This also means that half of the requirement to access the DLC has been fulfilled. Time to get my third talisman pouch. Deal with the Draconic Tree Sentinel as it's the last obstacle I need to get through in order to get to the Golden Capital. And while this looked like a pretty fast and easy fight, it kinda wasn't. He did not give me a lot of safe opportunities to actually shoot him. But I did do it in my first attempt. With that over, it's time to refill with some of the bolts that I can actually just buy. I'll eventually max out on storage for it, but not now. Next up, I deal with the Tree Avatar on the road of the Golden Capital. In order to get a good little juicy bit of runes that he drops. Then go and quickly fight Gold-Shade Godfrey, who was a pretty easy takedown, which I baited him into doing one specific attack so that Heavy can just minigun him down. And with his defeat, I get the final talisman pouch. And now, right before dealing with Morgott, I go and fight Patches in order to gain access to his store in order to get the Margit shackle.
Tiny baby man.
And that helped Heavy shoot Morgott down just like he did with Margit. As long as Heavy doesn't miss, Morgott had not much of a chance fighting back. I very much love the rate of fire of this thing. And now with Morgott defeated, I am obligated to tell you that I died one time against him. And with access to the mountaintop of the giants obtained, it is now time to farm for my armor, which is obtained from the big fat hammer-having fire guys. What I want from this guy is the leg and chest armor. The leggings was pretty easy to get, but the chest took a bit longer to obtain. Luckily for me, the farm time for these two pieces was just about 12 minutes. That felt like some pretty good luck. With the fashion obtained, Heavy is looking pretty good.
I am ready.
He's also looking pretty eager to shoot something down. I believe it's a good time to start collecting a few things I'm gonna need for later. But before that, I level up my health, mind, and endurance up a bit. Next up, Heavy here deals with poor Eleonora, who had no chance against rapid firing crossbow bolts. She needed to be defeated in order to obtain the purifying crystal tier to use against Mohg. Up next is a bit of collecting time by getting some perfume bottles, living jar shards, and the recipe book in order to make iron jar aromatics, which is as close to an uber heavy weapons guy can get in this game. Farming for living jar shard is gonna be annoying, but it'll probably be worth it. Luckily, everything else to farm for my bolts are a pretty easy pickup. Really need to fill up my storage with these bolts. I'll probably do it right before challenging the DLC. For now, I'm just going to continue using what I have and fight the fire giant. With this crossbow's multi-fire action, it was pretty easy to get through phase 1. He's using the element he's weak against right now to just shoot him. And after enough repeating fire with all the magical toothpicks Heavy shot at him, it was enough to break fire giant's leg.
Oh, that slaps me underneath.
And now it's time to shoot him in the face with the bleed bolt. I saved him for the second phase, as it tends to be the longer phase for me to get through. And after enough bolts to the face and giant eye, Fire Giant goes down. Fire Giant will always be one chunky fellow with the amount of health he has.
Man, I am giant.
I'm loving how much progress is being made right now. The Godskin Duo is next, but before that I lower up my health, mind, and endurance. Get a bit of exalted flesh for me to use up, then spend all the money I had left to get some blood bolts. Stocking up on bolts cost a pretty penny, which is pretty much just like Heavy's actual minigun. For the Godskins, I pretty much just put them to sleep, as any other sane Elden Ring player would do. Then I just shoot them in the face. They tend to reach their second phase pretty easily because of how slow the re-up is on the skill. But that matters not, because as long as there's a continuous stream of bolt fire, that is all that is needed for Heavy to beat this boss. And now it's just time to repeat the process for victory.
I think you need more men.
And after spending around I don't even know how many amount of runes and bolts, the Godskin Duo finally goes down. Will the Heavy financially recover from this? Well, of course, because every time I defeat a boss, I just steal their wallet.
It's good.
It is indeed pretty nice. Moving forward up next, I take the Dragon Lift in order to meet Alexander. Then Heavy quickly takes him down in order to get the talisman that he drops. The Shard of Alexander increases skill damage by quite a good bit. And that's going to be useful against the final boss of this area, which is Maliketh. Alright, for Maliketh's phase 1, I can just hide behind the pillar. Funny how it was quite as simple as that. Also made sure to use the normal bolts for this part. Right before his health bar depletes to the second phase, I equipped the blood bolts. And now here in phase 2, it's time to focus on bleeding him out. It took a bit to trigger a blood loss, but it helped. It only ended up triggering once in this entire fight. But it did what it needed, and after finishing him off, Maliketh goes down. I did die 3 times against Maliketh though. What can I say, he hits pretty damn hard. And also the life drain hurts. Great, the end of the game is pretty near, but Heavy's journey is not over yet. I'm gonna go challenge Mohg, but before that I think it's a good idea to deal with Gideon right now. And with his obsession of trying to pop out the law casualty, it made it actually quite easy to shoot him down. I don't like NPCs because of their immunity frames, but when he tries to casualty up, he just stands still, takes the hit, and wastes the incantation, and that makes it an endless cycle to his death. Before going to Mohg, I take a little quick detour into the abandoned cave, taking care of the clean wrought knights here at the end, giving them the old crossbow minigun special. All in order to get the golden scarab for increased rune gain, because I'm going to need that for farming. Then head into the Lindell sewers, which is not a pleasant place. Just so I can get Mohg's shackle. And now it's time to head over to Castle Sol, where I have no access to the second grace at all.
This is bad.
The game could be really merciless when it wants to. Here I fight Commander Niall and his Spirit Ash summons. Fortunately, they don't really take much bursting to take down, as each of them go down in just 2 volleys.
Entire team is babies.
And as for Niall himself, it takes a little bit to bring him down. Even with the amount of bleed bolts I shoot into him, he's built like a tank. Doesn't really matter at the end because Heavy is a pretty tenacious guy. And my reward for beating him, I get 1/2 of the secret medallion and get the other half at the village of the Albinaurics. And I did all of that just so I can properly farm some rimmed crystal buds. I can just let the enemies end me here, then spawn back at the Stake of America just so I can continue on farming. And now with the frost bolts finally in use, it is time to fight Mohg. The first thing Heavy does in the fight is pretty much just keep a distance and rot him. Afterwards it's time to frost him, then bleed him down to the best of my ability. Unfortunately, because of the reduced damage he takes because of the transition into the second phase, he's still left with a bit of health, but that's very easily manageable for Heavy. It's pretty funny that him being a being of the blood, he gets bleeded out pretty easily. And now that that's over with, it is now time for the DLC. Ah yes, the Shadow of the Earth Tree, where no mercy is given. Like seriously, just let Heavy ride in peace. Now that I'm here, it's time to start collecting Scadutree fragments, meeting the NPCs, and also getting graces for later use. Thankfully, a majority of the DLC map is open when you first enter it, which means I can get some pretty good talismans as well. Which one is inside of the Fog Rift Fort, which requires some expertise dodging to get through. So I can get the Arrow's Soaring Sting talisman.
Yes, I like
which
this.
both increases my bolt's damage and distance. Also, I went back to Legacy Elden Ring in order to get a crystal tier. Which is the Opaline crystal tier, which will increase my general defenses when I use it. And now back into the DLC I go, dealing with all the obstacles here, while also getting more graces for later use. Don't you just love having the random urge of destroying the environment around you? Also went and got the Golden Vow Ash Award, but then I ended up changing my mind and then went to go and get the Golden Epitaph instead. I think this will be doing a bit more damage for me, just because I can multi-hit a lot more frequently. Now before fighting any of the DLC bosses, I went to the ruins of Unte to trigger the Furnace Golem here in order to get his crystal tier. But this seemed like it was going to take as long as if I was using the Elden Stars, so I decided to do the process of taking down the Furnace Golem later. Now it's time to use all the Scadutree fragments I obtained, bringing up my blessing to 11. I also got the Holy Ground Ash Award because I know I'm going to be needing it for later. Now whether or not it'll be useful for later, we'll see. I'll see. No, Heavy will see. And now with all my bolts nice and full in my storage, farming for all of this was not a fun time, let me tell you. Good thing I have Rust videos to listen in the background. It's now time for Heavy to fight Commander Gaius. In my first few attempts against the Commander, I decided I wanted to Uber up, but that didn't help as much as I wanted it to. Even though I had tier 4 hardness, I didn't really have the hyper armor to justify using this. Also, his attacks were very good at causing me to flinch, and a lot of times that would just lead to my death. The Uber ain't feeling very Uber. Where's the doc when you need him? I had the thought of using some cheese by poisoning and rotting him, and then just stay in safety over here, but I decided against it. Easy victories are fun, but you don't really learn much about them. I mean, all you really learn is that the boss's AI could use a bit more tweaking. There's nothing wrong with doing it, it's just that for a challenge run video it's a tad bit boring. Also, my patience is pretty high, so that's kind of another reason why I didn't do it. For the fight against Commander Gaius, it was all about taking advantage of a sweet spot, which was being around the rear left of the boar. Any other time, it was a 50-50 whether or not I get hit with the follow-up of whatever attack I decided to dodge. And in this fight I decided not to really use any status effects, just because by the time I got to this attempt, I was already running out of status effect bolts. This victory was a very hard fought one. And also a very lucky one because there are many times when he decided not to just play nice. Now then, with the defeat of Gaius, we go into the Albinaric Shack that's right after the boss arena to get the Sharp Shot Talisman, which increases my bolt damage as long as I'm manually aiming. Also after that, a nice little boon of Scadutree Fragments. When it comes to the new talisman, the damage increase is actually pretty good. According to the wiki, it's a 12% increase to damage, but added with every other bonus damage source, it's damn good. Also, I thought here I got a hat, but in reality it was just a helmet. Heavy does not want that. For now, Heavy just has to reach the next boss that he has to fight. A lot of enemies in the way, but it's nothing a crossbow minigun can't deal with. Problems only arise if they're faster than Heavy. Now that I'm here near the top of the Belurat Tower settlement, it's now time to fight the Divine Beast Dancing Lion, which would have been the first boss I would have fought if the Sharp Shot Talisman was in a different location. Now with the Divine Beast's head being incredibly huge, not only that but pretty easy to shoot. Like seriously, Sniper would be having a field day here. That fact and a different type of bolt that I use in this fight, this battle was very easy. I thought I was gonna struggle a bit more here considering the arena is actually pretty small to fight him in. But hey, can't complain. A pretty lemon squeezy type of easy. I still had to dodge a lot though. Well, with the lion defeated, it's now time to go to the Stone Coffin Fissure, then deal with the laser defense grid that is installed in this place, and any bouncers that might get in the way. But it's a good thing they're not very bright. And now before I fight the boss, I level up Mind and Endurance, and also went out to get the Power Within Crystal Tier. Now just like the On the Stars challenge run, I could have stayed here a pretty long time just to take him down. But I didn't want to stay here for an estimated time of about 30 minutes. So against the Furnace Golem, I decided to just shoot him till he goes on the ground. And once it's down, I pretty much just punch him with Heavy's fist. Doing it like this took about 20 minutes. But hey, as a reward, I got the Blood-Sucking Crack Tier. And this thing drains my health, but increases the amount of damage I do. And with all my equipment ready, it's time to fight the Putrescent Knight. And just like Commander Gaius, this guy is very weak to Holy, so it's time to use that to my advantage. The repeating crossbow was doing some pretty good work, but with it being kinda slow, Heavy was taking some hits here and there. When the end animation of the repeating fire occurs, I pretty much just spam the dodge button and try to hope that I dodge. The damage the boss was dealing out wasn't that bad because of the Scadutree Fragments, so sacrificing some health for some very good hits was very favorable. And with the Putrescent Knight defeated, it's time to do this side quest very quickly, which of course requires death by ingesting girl sweat. What an unfortunate way to go. Then tell Fiolier, the location of St. Trina, proceed to eliminate him and his very weak build. Sorry man, poison only ain't viable. And after confirming that everything is done right, time to head over to the Manus Metyr Cathedral in order to get the Holy Necklace. And in order to use it, I need to go to the Finger Ruins and blow right into the structure that's in the middle of them. I ended up doing it in the wrong order, which he comments about actually. Pretty nice that FromSoft thought ahead about this. And after getting sucked off by a damn lamprey, not once, but twice right back to back. I blow into the last hollowed finger while also getting one of the best talismans in the game, then head down the ladder that's under the chair to deal with a pesky invader that I just absolutely decorated with bolts. The NPC is looking like a pincushion. And after going back to the Grace to recover everything I had, it's now time to deal with Metyr, the mother of fingers. And just like in the previous challenge run, she was very easy. By keeping a very good distance, I can easily damage the boss. When it comes to range attacks, she is not good against them. The only complication that I had in this fight was pretty much almost getting caught off by her floaty balls. The other thing is I pretty much just kept my distance or tanked right through. And after about like 3 whole minutes, she goes down. Poor Metyr. With that remembrance boss defeated, it's a good time to deal with a dragon, I believe. But before that, I drop a sandwich for a poor old soul. Right after that, I deal with the Dragon Man invader by pretty much just bleeding him out. Then deal with the actual him that just had more health just because he's a boss fight. He loves to dodge when I shoot at him because, well, he's coded to do that. But I do have to be careful because he can actually just one-shot me pretty much. But once the Ancient Dragon Man is defeated, I now have access to the Jagged Peak, which means it's time to just beeline my way towards the boss. There's no time for distractions as Heavy has bigger fish to fry. And that big fish is pretty much a half-dead fish named Bayle. For the fight against Bayle the Dread, I tried to manipulate his AI to the best of my abilities, which was to bait out his close-range fire attack. And that gave very good opportunities for headshots. The blood-sucking cracked here really helped with damage, but is a pretty risky thing to use. Going into the second phase of the fight, I got first unlucky, then lucky, while trying to dodge his essentially face transition attack. And from here out, the fight does not change very much. Of course, there's a few things here and there that I have to continue being careful about. And now that the blood-sucking cracked tear duration has ended, it really shaved off a lot of the stress in this fight. And after a good bit of fighting and different types of bolts flying everywhere, the Heavy has now taken down a big old dragon. Also, I only died one time. With Bayle defeated, it's time to head over to the Shadowkeep Church District, and with the water drained, I just fall down where the big Marika statue is, then head to the left. And after confirming what type of firebolts I'm going to be using in this fight, it is now time to face off against the Scadutree Avatar. In this fight, in order to do the best amount of damage, I have to hit the Sunflower Head. Any other body part hit has high damage resistance, so it ain't worth hitting it. Phase 1 being easy, it was pretty quick. Phase 2 took a bit more time because it loved to slide around. But as long as I continue with the headshots, this phase goes by pretty quick. Trying to track and anticipate where his head is gonna be is a tad bit difficult. But luckily in phase 3 it was much easier to hit its head. Just stuck with fire damage for most of the fight. And after dodging its final explosions, the sunflower goes down. And at the very end, frost was used just for the fun of it. With the Scadutree Avatar defeated, it's time for the Dark Light Catacombs. With, by using the power of poise and being fat, I just tanked right through. A giant imp cannon tried to outgun Heavy, but it was pretty easily dealt with. I didn't really have much of a problem here, except for the boss. And the only reason for it is because of the minions it summons. Specifically the fat one that loves to body slam as its first attack. I died a pretty good amount of times here, which is very annoying because I was able to do Bayle in just 2 attempts. But after I get down Mr. President Incident, the Inquisitor finally goes down. And now with the Abyssal Woods open, it's time to sneak my way to the boss. But of course, first of all, I have to get through the woods area by just baiting my enemies. And after reaching the manse, I just clown on my foes because they can't notice me behind them. fairly easy to get to the Grace as long as you're sneaky about it. And after getting a big old personal hug by Midra, it is time to fight the Lord of the Frenzied Flame. During the very start of the fight, I run towards the boss to take my free damage, and then fall back. And now it's just time to fight at a distance. And if I need to, I take my lumps while I'm at it. Midra's body is pretty skinny, so it's kind of difficult to hit him at times. The goal here was just to keep a very good distance away from the boss. I did have to be careful about his insanity laser though. For the majority of the fight, I just let the lock-on do a majority of the aiming for me. Also by this point, I swapped the status effect arrows in order to take him down a bit faster. As long as you know the distance of his attacks and he does not try to close the gap on you, Midra, just like Metyr, is pretty weak to range. As long as the attacks hit though, because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of magic that can't reach him from over here. Anyways, the boss goes down, and I get a shiny new remembrance that I'm probably going to be using for bolts. And now it's time to fight Rellana, which I did not record.
Oh no!
But thankfully, through the power of having a PC, just like how I was able to spawn the crossbow, I just respawned her back. And just like from the unrecorded fight, I'm going to use the same strategy I used there here. First thing that was done was make her stinky. So I inflicted her with both poison and rocks. I had a feeling I was just going to be dodging most of the fight, so why not put some damage over time on her. Once the opportunity presented itself, I swapped my bolts to lightning and frost. Frost of course is for that little bit of extra damage. And for lightning, there's a giant puddle in the middle of the arena. So I've got to take advantage of that. After some good lightning bolt hits, she went down pretty easily. And I have to say, the effect of the lightning bolts are pretty cool looking. And with that, Rellana goes down the second time. This encounter pretty much went identical to the first time I fought her. Except that time there was a lot more moon spam. This attempt didn't have very much of it. Moving forward, it's time to do a bit more side questing, which is helping Leda take care of the horn scent.
Sandwich.
And after getting the secret right scroll, then giving it to Sir Ansbach in order to continue his quest line and also help him in the fight against Leda. Because I gotta make a future NPC fight a little bit easier for myself later.
I have squashed you like a bug.
And now with that all done, I believe now it's time to do the one-way path of finishing the DLC. So first on the hit list of progress is Messmer. Not gonna lie, I thought I was gonna have a bit more trouble against him just like in my other runs. But I was able to get him to phase 2 in my first attempt. And then eventually died because of the lack of health items. But hey, Heavy did a pretty good job here. Now all I gotta do is repeat what I did. So in the first phase I just poisoned him, and then carried out the rest of the damage with the bleed bolts. And now here in the second phase I swapped my bolts to a Frost and Holy combo. Now that he's in a much more snaky form, Messmer has no Holy resist. So that means it's time for Heavy to capitalize on that. And while keeping the momentum up, my dodging was much more on point this time around. Also, I took advantage of his backstep swipe attack, which left him the most vulnerable for a barrage of arrows. Ah, excuse me, they're bolts. And after a good amount of fighting, which I believe took around 10 to 15 minutes, Messmer is defeated and I only died that one time. Time to continue the path of victory, which means it's the ancient ruins of Raoult time. Pick up whatever I forgot to get here. And it's also a very easy path to the boss. And with the runes I have, I level up mind and endurance again. Now it's time to challenge the boss, which is Romina, the Saint of the Bud. And to start off, she's weak to fire, so I send out a quick volley at the beginning. And now it's time to Uber up and continue the bolt fire. I ended up doing some pretty good damage here, and that's exactly what I wanted. In the other attempts against her, she would very easily just catch up to me, because trying to do damage against an enemy that loves to move around with just arrows and bolts makes it a tad bit difficult to do consistent damage. But only phase 1 really has this problem. In phase 2, her attacks take a bit longer and she leaves herself much more vulnerable, which means much more consistent repeating fire hits for the heavy. Right, that fight lasted about 1 minute in this video, but in reality it took around like 9 minutes. Also, I only ended up dying 2 times against her. With Romina defeated, Heavy commits a bit of eco-terrorism. It's by mistake, I assure you. And now he's on a path to eliminate a god. But the security system is very tight here. Fortunately, the second time around wasn't that bad with the spiraling light spam. Now it's time to continue moving forward, dodging anything the game might throw at us. And now it's time for the NPC showdown. In one corner we have Dryleaf Dane and Leda. And in the other corner is me, Ansbach, +1. And I say that because that +1 decided to die on us in the fight. Now the rest of the fight is pretty much just 1v1s. It took a bit, but I was eventually able to get Dryleaf Dane down. And Ansbach, being the absolute Chad that he is, just 1v1s Leda. And now it's time to deal with the biggest pain in the ass in this DLC, which is Consort Radahn. So as always, the first attempts in these fights are just trying to make a strategy of how to beat him. Doing this the more normal way would take a pretty long time, and how easily he could just dunk on me, it will take a while. Scadutree Blessing is currently at 15, so getting any more is pretty much just mid-maxing. And I don't feel like there's a need to further upgrade it because of how versatile the minigun crossbow is. So it's time to use that to its fullest advantage. I tried an attempt Ubering, but that did not go very well. And now I believe it's a good time to use rot bolts. It's a good thing I picked up a good bit amount of Aeonian butterflies just for this situation.
Let us begin.
Now it's time to go through the victory attempt. Because of the new update at the time, he doesn't start off with his gap closing attack, and because of that it gives me an opportunity to just shoot him pretty safely at the very start. Here it's 50-50 whether or not he uses gravity to try to get you close, or he just dives right at you. Here I got lucky using repeating fire 3 times before I got caught in the area of effect. And now here's an example of him not being generous while he's far. Also, his cheap little swipe attack finally got nerfed. Pretty happy about that. Now it's time to whittle his health down till we reach the second phase. And now here in the harder phase, it's time to reintroduce Radahn to the rot. It took like a good 5 volleys to actually inflict them with rot, with repeating fire. But now with the rot in play, I can now let that do passive damage for me, while I attempt to do some normal damage against them. I think this fight would have been a bit more easier if frost arrows were used instead of magic. I don't remember what I was thinking here at the time. Maybe I didn't want that easy one, but that's kind of a moot point because, well, I was using rot to do most of the damage. At least here in the second phase. Whatever, but now that the rot has finished, his health is low and it's time to take him out the old-fashioned way. And that means it's time for Heavy to start taking hits if he needs to. Of course he has a sliver of health. This is happening way too often for me. But finally, after unloading an entire repeating fire volley into his crotch, Radahn finally goes down. And that also means that Heavy has beaten a god.
You are no match for me. You are dead. Not a big surprise.
Only died 5 times against this boss. I'm getting better and better fighting Radahn. Also, the boss dropped some headwear for heavy. Well, it ain't an unusual, but it's better than nothing.
It's good.
Heavy is happy. I would say right now that I've already beaten the game. But that's not true, unfortunately. Time to finish this video by fighting the last 2 bosses. So first on the hit list, it's Godfrey, who I decided to Uber up on. You know, even though I'm getting continuously hit by all of his attacks, the fight is feeling very calm. After what was went through against Consort Radahn, this fight is pretty slow. Now on to Godfrey's second phase. He loved to scream at me very much. And for this part of the fight, I just decided to frost him, then use the magic bolts as that's his weakness right now. And since he kinda loves to stay stationary at times, that was the best chance to shoot him down. One down, one more fight to go. It's time for Heavy to end all of this. Before going in to fight the last bosses, I first buff up with my Uber, bring out Holy Ground as fast as I could, and after most of the first part of the fight, it's time to tank right through everything. Damn, Radagon does not care about my tier 4 toughness. Look at it, he was doing it again to catch Heavy lacking. Had some spare over rot bolts, so I decided to use them here. And that helped out a very good amount. I had them there, so I might as well have used them. Now the rest of this battle went pretty slowly because of how many times he deflected my bolts. Luckily by this point he had no more health to keep on deflecting repeating fire. With Radagon defeated, it's now time for the Elden Beast. For this fight I swapped out my talismans in order to increase the amount of damage I do. I was worrying a bit because at this point I didn't think I have enough blue flasks to last me the rest of the fight. The Elden Beast gave me a lot of opportunities to shoot at it, but every volley was bringing down my FP into a dangerously low amount. By this point I already ran out of normal bolts and had to use the elemental ones. Against the beast that's not good because he has very good elemental resist. It finally got to the point that my FP ran dry, but luckily I had a talisman to help me, which was the Blue Dew talisman. And now all I gotta do is wait patiently to recover FP. As long as the skill's name is highlighted, I'll be able to do a complete volley doing full damage. Good thing I picked this up while trying to get some Scadutree fragments. And finally, after using so many bolts, because the Elden Beast's health is actually pretty crazy, it is defeated and Heavy has slain another god. Now it's time to end this by paying a little bit of tribute.
Sandwich, it is best thing!
And that is pretty much it, everyone. I've beaten the game using the repeating crossbow and played as the heavy weapons guy. This one was actually a pretty fun run, even though it did take me a bit to finish it. You know how farming gets, and you know it's very time consuming, unfortunately. The repeating crossbow was very nice, but in whether choosing that or the pulley crossbow, I would choose the pulley crossbow just for the practicality of it. Mostly because it suffers no debuffs, unlike the repeating crossbow. But hey, the repeating crossbow was pretty damn cool. And after increasing its damage with talismans, it was pretty decent. Also, if you noticed, I have not fought in Malenia. I didn't feel like fighting her this time around. I have a feeling I know I would have won because I already kinda know the fight like the palm of my hands. First phase would have given me a little bit of trouble, but once I'm in second phase, there was a lot of opportunities to actually hurt her. So yeah, I didn't feel like fighting her, but I know I'd win. But that is it, everyone, and it's time for me to do the outro. This has been WarNightGamer4, and I hope you enjoyed this video. And please like, share, comment, and subscribe, because every little bit helps. And click the bell notification for alerts when I post a new video. And with that done, thanks for watching, and ciao.